Yes.
All right. So we did Story on a Painting of Gustav Klimt by Lawrence Ferlinghetti. The poem goes, they're kneeling upright on a flowered bed. He has just caught her there and holds her still. Her gown has slipped down off her shoulder. He has an urgent hunger. His dark head bends to her hungrily. The woman the woman turns her tangerine lips from his, one hand like the head of a dead swan draped down over his heavy neck.
The fingers strangely crimped tightly together, her other arm doubled up against her tight breast, her hand a linguid claw, clutching his hand, which would turn her mouth to his, her long dress made of multicolored blossoms quilted on gold, her Titian hair with blue stars in it, and his gold harlequin robe checkered with dark squares, gold garlands streamed down over her bare calves and tensed feet. Nearby there must be a jeweled tree with glass leaves that glitter in the gold air. It must be the morning, in a faraway place somewhere.
They are silent together as in a flowered field upon the summer couch, which must be hers. And he holds her still so passionately, holds her head to his so gently and intensely, to make turn her lips to his. Her eyes are closed like folded petals. She will not open. He is not the one. So for this poem type, um, it is a free verse poem, which basically means that the poem lacks a consistent rhyme scheme, metrical pattern, or musical form. There's basically no rhyme or reason to this poem. There isn't a particular rhyme scheme or like a rhythm to it, or no occurring stanza size. The only really consistent patterns is like the slanted sentences.
So, first noticeable literary device is his use of stanzas. Lawrence Ferlinghetti uses stanzas to draw great attention to every detail in the painting. He breaks up sentences and puts them in different lines of the stanza. And this makes you slow down your reading and really focus on each metaphor, wordplay, and description that Lawrence makes. For example, gold garlands stream down over her bare calves and tensed feet. By breaking up all the details, they're being given more attention and are likely to stick with the reader more. And another literary device he used was connotation. And Lawrence put his own connotation on words, manipulating them to create deeper descriptions of the painting. He used words like hunger and hungrily to put emphasis on the man's desire for the woman rather than actually meaning a need for food. His inclusion of these words give descriptions deeper meanings than the baseline adjective that would not resonate with the readers. Another literary device he used was allusions. Lawrence never mentioned the painting by name, so the whole poem itself is an allusion. By using metaphors, he alludes to details of the painting without specifically mentioning them. For example, her Titian hair with blue stars in it. He is alluding to the blue flowers in the lady's hair. And finally, he used imagery. And by using imagery, Lawrence shows us his interpretation of the painting, and it gives the readers a perspective of the painting through the lens of Lawrence Ferlinghetti. Her hand a linguid claw clutching his hand, which would turn her mouth to his, is my favorite example of his use of imagery. In his frequent inclusion of metaphors and wordplay within this imagery makes the poem all the more enticing.
So for the poem meeting, to us it was a kind of representing just the one-sided love that was presented in the painting. Um, you can see that in a lot of the language used. The male subject in the poem is very clearly in like into the female subject, while the female is most definitely not. Um, in the language, you can see that the author described her as very like weak and kind of tense still, like her feet were flexed and stiff, but he also described her hands as languid, which means like weak due to illness. um both her hands were basically not touching the man. When you look at the painting, she clearly did not want to be anywhere near him. And the obvious dislike toward the male subject is solidified when, in that last line of the poem, the author says he is not the one. When we're discussing the male subject, he's very clearly into the girl. You can obviously see that through the language still. He's bending towards her and making an effort to be closer to her. In the painting, his neck almost looks like tense, and you can see that, which shows that he's like really trying to be close to her. Also, there's a quote that he holds her head so gently, so insistently. And to me, that was kind of like he's trying to be gentle so that she likes him, but he's also kind of being like, kiss me, kind of. And it's just very, very obvious that the girl is not into the guy and he's very into her.
Our initial reaction is that we liked the story, the surface. We liked that on the surface. Reading this poem, you could say it was very romantic, but after reading it a couple more times, Ferlinghetti uses those subtle words like clutching, claw, tensed, and dead swan to give this effect that this woman is unwanting of this love. Then at the end, he writes that he is not the one for her. I think this is the reality even today when relationships on the outside, whether on social media or in this painting, can come off as perfect. But when you pay close attention, it's nothing close to perfect. You could also say that when people look at this painting, that you could say that they were both into each other. But like the poem, you can see that she's kind of turned her face away in her body language.
Okay, that's it.